My name is George Salamis. I'm President and CEO of Integra Resources, and I'm here to talk to you today about these great new discoveries in the Black Sheep area. And so, why are we so excited? Well, this area has vast potential, obviously, we certainly believe so, but it's a big area and it's a big untested area. And you know, as a geologist, and we have a team of geologists working for us who are great down in southwestern Idaho, you know, when you start drilling into an area and you see that extent, that breadth of mineralization in your first holes into this vast area, drilling on targets that you know will lead to something substantial. You know, when you start to get grades of, say, 0.3 grams per ton gold and something that looks like 10.8 grams per ton silver over widths of 41.76 meters, in the case of Georgiana, in your very first drill hole that you're putting into this area, you know it's going to be big. And so we're really excited by that. We're really excited by what we see out at Lucky Days as well, the extent of mineralization that we've encountered out there. And also on the southern end of the Black Sheep trend at Milestone, in one singular drill hole, which we think is a bit of a game changer here with respect to potentially hitting that ever elusive feeder structure to the Milestone shallow resource, we think we're really on to something. So let's kind of get started here and show you some of these results and how they sit relative to the geology. Before we get into that, maybe we talk about the history, what happened there in the past, what we've done in recent history in the last few years to work up these targets. So this is an area that has seen some historical workings back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, similar to Delamar in Florida, same era. Not a lot of workings in this area, and we believe there's a reason for that. We believe the reason is the level of erosion in this area of Black Sheep, which I'll show you in a second, relative to the Delamar and the Florida areas, is much higher. So there's more cover rock that sits over top. Nonetheless, we see all this, what we call low sulfidation epithermal style mineralization, gold and silver on surface, bleeding its way through that cover rock to the top. And lots of evidence for past hot spring activity that caused these mineralizing events in the end of the day. And so we see this. We've seen it in our geochemical surveys. We've seen this in our geophysics and our surface mapping. And then today, for the first time, we're announcing the first few holes into this area, which is really, really exciting. Maybe I'll start with a bit of a geographical reference on where this area sits relative to everything else that we've talked about over time. This is Delamar right here. That's 3.3 million ounces of gold equivalent. That's Florida Mountain, that's 1.1 million ounces gold equivalent. And for a complete breakdown of these resources by category, by grade, et cetera, by cutoff, please refer to our previous disclosure, 2019 resource estimates and PEA. So we've talked about Delamar and Florida Mountain lots in the past. The area that we're talking about today is really brand new. And it is this area northwest of Delamar called Black Sheep. And it's a big area. It's about 5 kilometers wide by about 6 kilometers long. So 30 square kilometers of almost completely untested ground. Certainly in the context of what we've done, we haven't drilled it up until very recently, and we got these great results in our first pass. This is a really, really big area. With respect to what we believe is going on from a geological perspective, as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, we believe that this is very definitely low sulfidation epithermal style gold and silver occurrences in this area, yet higher level than what you would see at Delamar or Florida Mountain, say. So going from the northwest of this area down to the southeast of Delamar and then east over to Florida Mountain, you're going from higher level low sulfidation epithermal mineralization, where you're seeing a lot of evidence of hot spring activity or fossilized hot spring activity together with mineralization gold and silver. Lots of sinter material, lots of brecciated volcanics and lots of sort of almost fossilized sinter material that we see in and amongst the mix of sinter out there. So very high level, very much indicative of hot spring level activity, or that close to the surface anyway. As you go to the southeast or east and southeast, you get into Delamar, it's a bit deeper, Florida Mountain deeper again, and then War Eagle deeper again, but all on the spectrum of low sulfidation epithermal geology. Now, what got us into this area, really, this was Max Baker, our Vice President Exploration, who years ago wanted to sort of look at areas outside of what was known of the deposits, Delamar and Florida Mountain, in an effort to assess where to go next, where to look for the next big discovery. Obviously, we are looking with a lot of success immediately on strike from the two known deposits, but where can we go in this district where we can find another Delamar or Florida, or perhaps both? And all of the vectors pointed to this area of Black Sheep in here, this vast area. So we started doing sort of the requisite ground exploration to start generating targets, things that had never been done in the past, soil geochem surveys, lots of mapping, lots of detailed sampling, leading to ground geophysics and IP, which works extremely well. All of these techniques work extremely well, which I'll show you in a sec. So that's what started getting us really excited about this area a couple of years back. And then so the first form of that came in the form of soil geochem for gold. And I'll show you what that looks like property-wide here as I pull it up on the screen. Just to, again, orient you geographically, that's the 3.3 million ounce Delamar. That's the 1.1 million ounce Florida Mountain. And this area, this huge area that we've been talking about, or we will be talking about today, is in fact right there. That's Black Sheep. And so I'm going to zoom in onto that area, just show you the various targets that came to pass through the process of sampling. So you can see here, there's some pretty extensive, plus kilometer long anomalies that started to develop through the course of doing our soil geochem. This is the Georgiana, target. This is Lucky Days. These are the two areas that we drilled first. And these are the much larger remaining anomalies up here, Statute Hills, for example, Twin Peaks up here, and Argentum that remain to be drilled. And we'll get there at some stage. But first, let's just talk about what Georgiana and Lucky Days look like from our first pass of drilling. I'm just going to show you very quickly what the silver signatures look like. Very similar to gold. The gold and silver in this camp tends to go hand in hand pretty much at all of these deposits, and there's a lot of silver out there certainly. But again, this is the Georgiana silver target. This is the Lucky Days silver target. Really big anomaly up here at Twin Peaks we haven't tested yet. Spain and Statute Hills sits there, Argentum sits there. And so our first pass was obviously into the Georgiana and Lucky Days target area. And I'm going to take you to our first pass of drill results there. And so some really good results straight out of the gate there, not only sort of individual high grades, but bulk tonnage low grades as well. And again, I can't reiterate more strongly, as a geologist, when you see this drilling for the first time and into an area, you get quite excited, as you would get excited by seeing core that look like this. Multiple layers of either felsic volcanics or latites, with a lot of this flow banded material with interstitial silica in between the flow bands, lots of sulfide mineralization in and amongst those banded coliform veins, and you see that throughout some of this drill core. So you can now understand why our geologists were so excited. On to Georgiana, still at Georgiana. The level of brecciation in this area is incredible. Boxes and boxes of brecciated volcanics, either felsic volcanics or latites. In and amongst that breccia matrix, lots of silica, lots of sulfide. So we're now starting to explain why the geophysical anomalies are there, and which I'll show you in a second. But as a geologist, you get really excited when you see this sort of stuff. And again, there's boxes and boxes. In fact, you could drill a hole through the center of Delamar, the 3.3 million ounce resource, and it looks identical to this in some respects, certainly in terms of silica flooding and brecciation in amongst the felsic volcanics and the latites. So you can understand what gets us really excited. When we start to see this kind of veining with this much sulfide in it, we start to get really, really excited. Jumping back to a secondary means of detecting new zones, new areas of potential in this area, focusing squarely on Georgiana. We ran IP Geophysics, basically an IP chargeability survey over the Georgiana and Lucky Days targets. That would have been, I think, about a year ago or so. And really interesting thing came to pass. Now, just to take a step back, just to describe IP in the context of induced polarization, it works extremely well as a means of picking up or detecting low sulfidation epithermal deposits, specifically in the context of Delamar and Florida Mountain. There is, generally speaking, a one-for-one correlation between IP chargeability and mineralization of some sort, gold and silver. And in fact, you can put the IP chargeability survey directly over the Delamar deposit, and it's a one-for-one correlation. I'll show you that in a second. But check out this area of IP chargeability that we obtained from the Georgiana and Lucky Days targets. Really extensive chargeability signatures that are related to these two target areas. Several kilometers long, probably over a kilometer wide. And so that formed the basis of a target. And I'm just going to pull up what the IP chargeability looks like at Delamar, just to show you, just to compare and contrast. This is 3.3 million ounces of gold equivalent. Again, check our disclosure on that 2019 resources. And this is the Georgiana and Lucky Days target areas with respect to IP. So basically what we're trying to say here is the IP chargeability anomaly as it relates to Delamar is just as big. And we literally just have 3 drill holes into this now. We're just barely scratching the surface on this very, very large area. But we're really, really excited by that. Over to Lucky Days. Now, Lucky Days sits immediately east of the Georgiana target. It's probably higher up in what we feel is a series of step-down grabens with normal faults as you go from east to west. More sort of lower level, latite, maybe basement rock, ido-batholith stratigraphy is what we saw out there. Nonetheless, there are some felsic volcanics as well out there. And so this is the target area itself. And these are just some of the drill results that we obtained from that target area. There's some high-grade sections. There are some low-grade sections in and amongst our very first hole into this area. Let me show you what the core looks like from that. Again, something that would get a geologist really, really excited if they saw as a first drill hole into a brand new area. Lots of veining, lots of silver sulfide in those veins, lots of brecciation similar to what you would see at Delamar and at Florida Mountain as well. When you see boxes and boxes of that style of brecciation and that amount of sulfide, you start to get excited because this is your first drill hole certainly into this area. So we're really excited by that. I'm just going to jump down to the third and last area, which also got us really excited. It sits on the southern end of BlackSheep, the BlackSheep trend. And what Max believes is there are a series of structures that basically start at Delamar. There's the Milestone deposit as it sits there, something called the Milestone fault, which runs up into this direction. And there might be a couple of subsidiary faults that do the same thing, that kind of parallel that zone. The edge of a volcanic complex, who knows, still early days, but there's very definitely a structure there that's quite important that drove a lot of this mineralization in this district. And we feel that from the drilling that we did at Milestone, for the very first time, we've hit that structure below the deposit. We think we're onto something here at Milestone. We started to intersect grades at Milestone, which were much higher than the average grades of the deposit, the pit-constrained resource that's on that end. And it's a small, shallow resource. We think it's going to get much bigger. But what really got us going was not only the bulk tonnage intercept that came out of that, 0.44 grams gold, 488 grams per ton silver, 77.6 grams per ton silver over 78.94 meters. That's the bulk intercept. What got us really interested, though, is in and amongst that thick bulk intercept would be 6.66 grams per ton gold equivalent over 1.52 meters, 4 grams per ton gold equivalent over 1.68 meters, 4.1 grams per ton gold over 1.52 meters. You get it. You get it. You start to see those types of grades, specifically with respect to silver, 488 grams per ton silver, 298 grams silver, 288 grams per ton silver, that sort of thing. You start to really see maybe there's a feeder that's starting to develop here at Milestone. So we're quite excited by that. The other thing that we're excited about is this. As you zoom into the Milestone area itself, I'm just going to focus that deposit. There's the 1350 gold, 1690 silver pit shell for the shallow deposit at Milestone on the southern end of the Black Sheep Trend. What's really interesting there is you can see, as I spin this around, most of the intercept that we've reported today that sits right there sits well outside of the pit boundary. And Max believes that we're really onto something in terms of potential high-grade feeder structures that fed Milestone and fed a lot more mineralization in this area to come. So we've got lots of drilling to do underneath the pit shell into this area. Lots more drilling to come. But what we believe was we're onto a brand new area of potential high grade, similar to Florida Mountain maybe. We'll see. So lots more drilling to be done. So just to kind of wind things up here, lots of drilling to be done. Brand new discovery in this really big 30 square kilometer area called Black Sheep. Lots of similarities to Delamar and Florida Mountain from a potential gold resource potential, expansion potential perspective. Lots of drilling to be done there now. We've got one drill rig in that area that we'll probably keep in that general area through the balance of the winter. And we also have one drill rig, as many of you know, sitting here drilling the depths of the high grade at Florida Mountain underneath the resource. Really excited by today's news announcement. Our geologists are really excited. When they saw the core, they were ecstatic, and we're just going to keep drilling it. Thanks very much.